My name is Ann Atkinson, and I'm the Executive Director of the T.W. Lewis Center for Personal Development at Barrett the Honors College. Before I tell you about the Lewis Center, let me ask some questions. Are you prepared for life after college, for its challenges, for its opportunities? Do you know how to find success and happiness in your life after college? Do you already have a path to career success that is catered to your personality, behaviors, and strengths? Or are you still searching? Do you already have a professional network that can guide you along that path? If you are unsure of these answers, the Lewis Center can help. The Lewis Center is an innovative center of Barrett the Honors College. Established in 2019, the Lewis Center prepares students for the challenges and opportunities of life. We do so primarily in three ways: workshops, an engaging speaker series, and innovative courses. The Lewis Center is generously funded by an entrepreneur donor, the T.W. Lewis Foundation, in partnership with Barrett, and offers its programs and services at no additional cost beyond tuition and Barrett fees. Programs and courses are available exclusively for Barrett students.
The T.W. Lewis Centers offers students events that deal with leadership, career development, and life skills.
Lifelong skills and leadership opportunities that I'll carry with me through college and hopefully beyond college into my career.
These events and different classes and workshops are designed to give students perspective and leadership skills that they wouldn't learn in their regular courses through their major.
The T.W. Lewis Center offers courses specialized in personal and professional development.
Connects you with different opportunities that help develop you as a person outside of your classes.
They offer classes, they offer workshops, they bring in a variety of speakers to support students.
I like to think of it as like everything you need after graduation that you can't learn in any of your classes.
Lewis Center workshops are 1 to 2 hour small group interactive sessions led by industry and community experts in areas such as personal development, career success, financial literacy, and life skills. These experts also lead workshop series for the Lewis Center, each series dedicated to a singular topic area, including entrepreneurship, personal finance, and leadership. The speaker series covers topics including self-awareness, behaviors, values, strengths, personal values and character development, leadership and entrepreneurship, decision-making and risk-taking, career planning, success, and happiness. Many speakers will also lend their perspective on difficult and important topics, such as the role of personal values and character, overcoming adversity, making mistakes, navigating complex life decisions, and much more. Courses in the Lewis Center earn honors credit, up to 6 of the total 36 honors credits required for graduation from Barrett. These courses are open to all Barrett students, regardless of campus, year, or major. Lewis Center courses are offered in all sessions, in person and online. Current courses include self-awareness and leadership, self-awareness and career success, multidisciplinary entrepreneurship, success, happiness, purpose, and meaning, life skills and personal finance, and experiential learning.
You're able to be exposed to different topics and content, and although they may not apply to your major or your career path, there's valuable lessons in every single event that they put on.
As a first-year student, I would go to the Lewis Center events because it's a great way to meet people.
A great way to get engaged in campus, especially offering you that small-knit community.
Once you leave college and are pursuing your goals and your dreams, you don't just need the academic information, you also need to understand how to navigate life.
In closing, the Lewis Center is one of the ways that Barrett the Honors College is working to provide the best education for bright undergraduate students in the nation. We are here to support you in your path to success. My name is Ann Atkinson.
Welcome. I love seeing all of you here. Welcome to a program that promises to enlighten us on the topics of health, wealth, and happiness. The program features a panel discussion with 3 renowned experts in these vital areas who will challenge the conventional thinking. As the executive director of the T.W. Lewis Center for Personal Development at Barrett the Honors College here at Arizona State University, it is a privilege for me to be a part of the planning team and have the honor of serving in this role. Again, my name is Ann Atkinson, and I had that part planned, but you already got it down. What is tonight's program? As depicted in the video, the speaker series is one of the offerings of the Lewis Center. This evening's program is a classic example of the Lewis Center Speaker Series. We hold 1 to 2 Speaker Series programs per week during the semester, specifically for Barrett students on the Barrett campus in Tempe. But unlike tonight, those programs are in a smaller venue, exclusively for Barrett students, and they include dinner. Many of you here tonight have participated in the Lewis Center Speakers programs, where inspiring speakers have shared their personal and professional journeys. I would like to highlight some of our recent speakers and programs. We have hosted a dynamite entrepreneur with a luxury handbag enterprise that taught us how she integrates her handbag business with her nonprofit that teaches entrepreneurship to disadvantaged youth. We have hosted an executive that shared his journey from meeting the Dalai Lama as a boy in India to building a $43 billion semiconductor business. We have hosted speakers from Banner Health, the Mayo Clinic, and Barrow Neurological Institute, Honeywell, Tesla, and Apple. We have hosted scores of entrepreneurs and local business leaders. Our hosts include A-list Hollywood talent, Super Bowl champions, and Olympians. We have also hosted many Barrett alums. Lewis Center speaker professions have included global finance, mining, sustainability, AI, fintech, medtech, law, social media, cyber management, law enforcement, commercial real estate, business, public speaking, neuro-linguistic programming, professional etiquette. The program titles have included The Connection Between Your Spirit and Your Health, which you might recognize as one of this evening's panelists, Curiosity and Adversity, a mindset for cultivating success, Hustling for the Greater Good and Closing the Opportunity Gap, and of course, Keep It Super Simple, a Rich Dad workshop series for entrepreneurs and investors led by the whole team at Rich Dad and the impressive Rich Dad advisors. You learned from the video that Lewis Center programs focus heavily on career success, entrepreneurship, and happiness, life skills, and personal finance. We work to help Barrett students prepare to thrive in the real world. The speaker programs we organize often lead to internships, mentorship opportunities, and job prospects, while also fostering a sense of community and connection among Barrett students and providing access to the real-world networks with influential leaders. The majority of our speakers stay connected with Barrett students, which is crucial given the difficulties of building a professional network in a classroom environment. In addition to speaking to Barrett students, many of you have also provided skills-based workshops to impart knowledge and skills to our students. Thank you. Many of you here tonight have generously contributed your resources to support the work of the Lewis Center. Thank you. Some members of the audience have collaborated with the Lewis Center to generously contribute to an endowment of $500,000 aimed at promoting inclusivity at Barrett through scholarships. Thank you. Others in the audience have made contributions to the Lewis Center through the purchase of your tickets here tonight. Thank you. Tonight's event is a small part of the Lewis Center's efforts, and we hope it will bring attention to our work in making a big difference. Regarding free speech, this event has sparked public discourse, but ASU is committed to free and uninhibited sharing of ideas. Thank you. President Crow also believes that ASU, quote, strives to provide an environment that fosters the fullest degree of intellectual freedom and free expression. This evening's program is a speaker presentation and a learning environment where we can all expand our minds and consider insights from some of our nation's thought leaders. This is an educational speaker program to be enjoyed much like many of the Broadway shows that take place in this same venue. Although, unlike The Lion King, we're not going to have elephants walking down the aisles, and unlike Hamilton, the stage doesn't rotate and we don't have swift rhymes. And unlike Frozen the musical, I see a couple of children here tonight that's coming in a few weeks. No one here has ice powers that I know of. It's time to begin the program. I'm now going to introduce Tom Lewis, who will share a few words. Tom will introduce Charlie Kirk, who will also share a few words, and then I will return to introduce our panel for the evening. Tom Lewis is the founder of T.W. Lewis Company, a Scottsdale, Arizona-based real estate investment company known for its outstanding quality and customer service in the home building industry. In 2002, Tom and his wife, Jan, formed T.W. Lewis Foundation to support higher education, children and families in needs, youth character education, and a variety of local and national nonprofits that build community and strengthen America's civil society. In 2015, Tom and Jan created the Lewis Honors College at the University of Kentucky. In 2019, Tom and Jan worked with the ASU Foundation and Barrett the Honors College to create the T.W. Lewis Center for Personal Development. Tom, Jan, your work has positively impacted thousands of lives, including many here at Barrett. Please welcome Tom Lewis.
Wow, what a crowd. Thank you all for coming. Very nice to really, I can't see you much, but thank you for coming. And really a big thank you to Ann. I mean, she has been the spearhead of this program. She came up with the idea. She's executed it. She's invited some incredible speakers. It's really amazing that we've got all these great minds here. And there's some wonderful ideas that I know these people. I follow them all. I've followed them for a long time. And it's an outstanding panel of speakers tonight. I want to say just a few words about each of the speakers, really. Of course, you know these people probably, but Charlie Kirk is the founder and president of Turning Point USA. That's an amazing organization. They're the largest student organization in America. They've got organizations on over 3,000 colleges and high schools across America. And then we have Dennis Prager. I met Dennis Prager 25 years ago and have been following him ever since. And I really have to say that to me, he's the American Socrates. I mean, he is the wisest person I've ever known, I've ever listened to, and he is amazing. I've followed him closely. He has a real talent, I think, for finding the truth and then expressing himself, and he's just so full of wisdom that I can't, I just don't get tired of listening to Dennis. And then we have Robert Kiyosaki. I got to know Robert about a year ago. He's the famous author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And like Robert, I also had a poor dad, and I became a rich dad. And the way I did that is really the model that Robert talks about in his book, and I've gone back and read it, but his book is so true, and it's really about understanding business and understanding money. And I have the same story that Robert has, is that, my dad was poor and I didn't want to be, so that motivated me. And then finally we have Dr. Radha Gopalan. He's a local well-known cardiologist. He's a heart surgeon. He's also an expert on heart health, and I think he takes that a step further, so you're going to learn more about him tonight. When I think about health, wellness, and happiness, I really think you can put all that together and call it human flourishing. And that's really kind of what this panel tonight is about, but human flourishing. How can we become the best we can be? How can each of us commit to doing that? And that's really the purpose of life, I think, is to try to become the best we can be. And that's not easy. But I actually wrote a book about that, and it's right here. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But at the time, I didn't realize it was about human flourishing. But it's really about how to become successful and happy and to do it the right way. And But there's a model for this, and I want to talk a little bit about that model because some of you may know, I've been in the home building business most of my life, and here in Tempe, actually, and in over 30 years, we built over 6,000 homes in Metro Phoenix. And with all those houses, we paid a lot of attention to quality, but every now and then we'd have a home with a bad foundation. And those were the toughest service problems that I ever had to deal with, because you really just can't fix a bad foundation. And so it is with life. We all have an opportunity to build our lives on solid ground, but we first have to have a good foundation. And so I talk about this in my book. But so when there's 5 components that I believe make up a solid foundation. The first one is personal character. Nobody really likes to talk about that, but 2,500 years ago, Aristotle said that virtue was the key to happiness. And today we call virtue personal character. But there's actually 2 different types of character. There are moral traits and there's performance traits. For example, if you're a hard worker and you're disciplined and you have resilience, those are all performance traits. They make you a good worker, but they don't make you a better person. On the other hand, if you have honesty, integrity, and humility, those traits make you a better person, but they don't make you a better worker. So it's good to kind of understand the difference. I get into that in my book, but personal character and strong moral virtue is really the foundation for living a good life, and that's what we're talking about, in putting yourself in a position to flourish. The other one is also something that most people don't like to talk about, but it's hard work. I was driving down here tonight with a friend of mine, and he was telling me about some of the athletes he's played basketball with and how it was all about hard work for them to succeed. But some really cool things happen when you try to do hard things and you fail. And then you get back up and you try again, and you might fail again, but finally you succeed. And in doing that, 2 really beautiful things happen. One is your self-esteem goes up because you're proud of what you've done. And the other is you build your resilience. And I know today a lot of young adults have issues with self-esteem and with their resilience. They're just not tough. And so I think hard work is really a good cure for that. And so it's a good way to build your resilience and your self-esteem. Another thing that is a part of your foundation to flourish is setting goals. I love the quotes that if a person without a goal is like a ship without a rudder. You have to have a goal to know where you want that ship to go. And if you want your dream to come true, you first have to have a dream. So I would ask each of you to think about, what is my dream and what are my goals? And here's a trick about goals. You want to set goals that inspire you. You don't want to set goals that kind of bum you out. And I think it's better to become goals. Not goals like I want to lose 10 pounds, but how about I want to become extremely fit and healthy? I mean, that would be a better goal than I want to lose 10 pounds. And it might be more inspiring. So set goals that get you excited, and then change them when times change. So, but be a goal setter. Be an avid goal setter. And then there's the area of self-awareness. We're all different. We all have our different talents, and together we make up the whole. But you have to, part of going to college is to try to understand and learn, what are you really good at? What is your natural talent? Because I've heard so many young adults tell me they're going to follow their passion. And what I tell them is, no, follow your talent, because your talent is not going to change, and your passion changes, with the wind. So, but when I talk about self-awareness, what I'm really talking about is each individual's unique talent, and then your core values. We don't all have the same core values, but in the book that I wrote, you can see what I'm talking about, and you can take a little quiz, and you can actually in 10 minutes figure out your top 6 core values. And I've taken this little quiz 100 times or a dozen times, and I always come out with the same 6. And they're honesty, integrity, hard work, achievement, compassion, and reliability. And those are just the most important things to me, in the world. So anyway, it's good to know those values, because once you know them, making decisions, good decisions, becomes a lot easier. And then the final building block in a good foundation is helping other people. And that's not totally intuitive. You know, why should I help somebody else? What does that do for me? It actually does a lot for you. First of all, it lifts your self-esteem. It gets you out of yourself. It makes you happier, because focusing on yourself does not make you happier. And so helping other people, you know, what are you doing for other people? The more you do for other people, I believe the happier you'll be. And so kind of in closing, you know, we're talking tonight about success, purpose, and happiness, and I'd like to give you my brief definitions of each of those. You know, success is not about money, and it's not about fame. The best definition I've heard of success was 100 years ago by Earl Nightingale, which is success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And so think about that. You know, when I started my company, we had a vision statement that we wanted to become the best home building organization in America as measured by profits, quality, and customer service. And that was our vision. That was noble, that was a worthy ideal, and it took us 20 years to do that. So that's an example of success, a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So when you set your success goals, make sure that they're worthy, you know, make sure that they're noble, and then they'll inspire you. We hear a lot of young adults talking about finding their purpose, and I kind of chuckle at that, because purpose just takes a long time to figure out, and it comes to you slowly. And you know, when I was 22, I had no idea what my purpose was, and actually, I think my purpose changed every decade. You know, in my 20s, my purpose was to get educated and start my career. In my 30s, my purpose was to begin and build a family. In my 40s, my purpose was to start and grow a company. And then my 50s was to start figuring out what I'm going to do with the money. So, and that's when we got into philanthropy. So purpose changes, and ultimately, your ultimate purpose to be on this planet usually comes late in life. And if you're a person of faith, it's not really your purpose at all. It's His purpose for you. So that's what I've learned about purpose. And then I'm going to close talking about happiness, and just about everything I know about happiness I've learned from Dennis Prager. And he wrote a book in 1998 that I wish every one of you would read, called Happiness is a Serious Problem. And I bought that when I was 50 years old, and began reading it, and I instantly became happier. And what I learned about it was that a good part of our happiness we can't control. You know, your height, your skin color, your family, where you were born, what country you're from. You can't control a lot of that, and that does affect your happiness. But there's a big part of your happiness that you can control, and I'm going to give you some examples of that. And here's how we can improve it. If we focus on other people and not on ourselves, we get happier. If we see what's right and not what's wrong, we get happier. This was a big one for me. If you can learn to admire other people, not envy them, it makes you happier. If you can admire someone else, not envy them, it makes you happier. If you take responsibility and not consider yourself a victim, you get happier. And finally, if you're grateful for what you have and you're not wanting more, you'll become happier. And so I guess to wrap up, I think the best way you can flourish is to build your foundation on solid ground. And then it's simply to focus on other people, to live a moral life, and to be grateful. And if you can do those things, you're going to have a wonderful life. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to our next speaker. Okay, so it's now my pleasure to introduce Charlie Kirk. And I'm a big fan of Charlie Kirk. I've just gotten to know him recently, but I followed him for quite a while. Turning Point USA has over 500,000 students. They have an online platform that reaches about 1 million people a day. He also has a weekly podcast. He's very active. He's very smart. He's a leader. He's a doer. He's a strong voice for the conservative movement in America. And he's a good friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Kirk.
Thank you, everybody. Is this on? Thank you, everybody. Is this on? Cool. Tom, that was excellent. Thank you. And thank you guys for showing up tonight. There's a lot more controversy around this than I would have expected. And I can't even see that. But could you think of a less controversial title of a speech, Health, Wealth, and Happiness? And somehow that gets to be super controversial, right? I mean, evidently, I suppose everything does. So, look, there's a couple things I want to talk about, and I do want to address this last week, but I want to make sure the proper thanks is in order. Despite all the clamoring and the nonsense, Arizona State University deserves credit for still allowing this event to proceed. And I mean that non-sarcastic. I'm not exactly a college fan. That's supposed to be somewhat funny, but no, I mean that. It's a big deal. This is allowed to proceed and happen and continue. So I want to address some of these attacks. Look, you could say whatever you want about me. It doesn't bother me. But when you start attacking Dennis Prager, I mean this. I mean, and the person who was attacking him was a religious studies scholar, which, if you know anything about Dennis Prager, who probably has published more, written more, spoke more, or broadcasted more about the Torah and the Hebrew Bible than any person alive on the planet, I would just say that if you're a religious studies scholar, you could probably learn something from Dennis Prager instead of wanting to kick him off your campus. And look, I could defend myself, it's fine. And Dennis probably won't even get into most of this, but it does tell you something that you could disagree with everything that I might say or Dennis might say. However, if your profession is to study religion and someone who has now successfully published 4 out of 5 Bible commentaries, which I don't know if you've seen Dennis's Rational Bible. It's one of the most amazing accomplishments of the modern era, going verse by verse of the 5 books of Moses and understanding the original biblical Hebrew. And the quote is just so funny. It says, "I want to make it clear that each signature on this petition was for a different reason. I believe these speakers represent ideas that go against the principles of ASU charter that stand for inclusivity and not exclusivity." Well, if you're for inclusivity, then why do you want the event not to happen? That's not very inclusive of you. I'm so tolerant, which is why I don't want other ideas to occur. It's really interesting. So, look, I also want to make a special shout out to the 10 professors who didn't sign the petition. Are any of them here, if you're here? Because all the emphasis was 37 out of 47. I mean this non-sarcastically. I was impressed that there were 10 holdouts. That there were 10 professors that said, I'm not comfortable signing this petition. That was more than I expected, truly. But it does tell you a lot about, where the academy is headed. And again, I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, but if you are a professor that signs a petition like that, just so intellectually lazy and just so sloppy, you're an intellectual midget or coward, in my opinion, not to want to be able to defend your position. And quite honestly, lazily and sloppily, and it's an insult to everyone who worked really hard to get a PhD, just to say that stuff like, oh, he's a white nationalist. Like, really, what's your substantiation for that? Would you like to come up? By the way, open invite for any one of the 37 professors. You're welcome on my national radio program anytime, and you can have an uninterrupted opportunity to tell me in front of millions of people why you believe the stuff you believe, or are you too cowardly because you just want to sign a petition and then go off into the distance with your moral superiority? All right. Enough of that. But again, the university deserves credit for not cowing to the mob. That is important. All right. It's funny because I'm still planning to talk about some of the most I would say non-controversial things. Non-controversial for me, but there's two very simple things that I want you guys to walk away with that I think could be helpful and that I think could bless you and I think that could address a lot of other issues. So the name of the talk is Health, Wealth, and Happiness. So I was thinking to myself, what is one thing that you could do that has been proven over a long period of time that could make it easier to be healthy, wealthier, not just wealthy financially or materially, but hopefully wealthier in the soul and happier. And it didn't take long for me to realize something I started doing a year and a half ago, largely thanks to Dennis Prager and many others, that has been proven to work for thousands of years, that I think I know America used to honor, and America... I'm getting LASIK surgery, so my eyes are not what I don't know what his sign said. I'm sure it was not wise. Am I right? I'm just guessing. So, okay, that's what it said. Yeah, we'll go with that. That's my truth tonight. So, what has worked for thousands of years that have helped people get healthier, happier, and wealthier? The real wealth that matters is the wealth of the soul, the depth of the soul. Not material wealth, but material wealth can help you. And it's something I started to do a year and a half ago that I didn't come up with, obviously, but it's something that I think America has forgotten. And it's stopping for 25 hours a week. Put simply, honoring the Sabbath. This is something that, I'll be very honest, modern American Christianity has done a horrendous job of this. However, I'm going to challenge even the atheists or the secularists that, thank you for coming for the speech, I'm not going to even try to make a religious case for this. I'm going to tell you that if you do stop, which is what the word means, Shabbat, to stop, you'll be healthier, you'll be wealthier, and you will be happier. So if you think about the idea of the Sabbath or the Shabbos, I know we have some religious Jews here that do this every week, so for them this is somewhat easy, but I'm a newcomer to this, right? My idea of the Sabbath was like putting my phone away for 30 minutes and watching football, right? That was my idea of the Sabbath. I would work every day, every minute, every hour, and a really good pastor friend of mine, plus Dennis's teaching, said, Charlie, you need to stop. I said, why do I need to stop? I got work to do. They said, well, you need to stop in the name of God. You know, kind of a play off of the stop in the name of love. And I said, well, what do you mean? Shabbat means stop. If God rested after creating the world, of which I believe, then you should too. And so July of 2020, what would that be, 2021, a year and a half ago, I decided to do it. Friday night, turn off my phone, and at first, it's incredibly difficult. I'll tell you, if you do this, it creates anxiety separation with your phone. You're wondering if the world's falling apart. It's tough. And it takes work the first couple months to do it. But then after 5 or 6 months, and you really get into it, you start to expect it, and you start to look forward to it. And I kid you not, with no exaggeration and no hyperbole, the way that you used to look forward to Christmas once a year, I look forward to Friday nights. Because now I believe, I don't expect you to necessarily adopt this belief. I believe God commanded us to do it. So therefore I say God wants me to turn off my phone. He doesn't want me to watch the news, which is honestly refreshing because it's all I do for 6 days a week. And all I care about is family, reading books. For 25 hours, I stop. And I am a healthier and happier person because of it. And in our mental health issues are across the country, depression, anxiety, and I would just submit, maybe instead of prescribing incredibly, let's just say, powerful pharmacological agents of benzodiazepines, Xanax, Zoloft, maybe first we should tell a young person, turn off your phone for 24 hours a week. It slows down your life in a more religious, transcendent context. It also makes you have to do the work, go through the action of saying, I did not create this world. I am not in charge of this world. And what I'm doing is not necessarily as important as, at least for one day, honoring that there is a transcendent melody and harmony to our existence. Now, but for those of you that say, Charlie, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. it's too much for me. I get that, maybe. However, what could be more important than stopping and saying, I'm going to honor the cathedral built in time to say that my health, my relationship to my Creator, my family is so important. And I would argue that the more radical you are about the Sabbath, the more you're going to get out of it. To say, totally turn off the phone, totally put it away, I'm going to totally disconnect from technology, and I could tell you it is one of the greatest blessings in my life. And you have something to say once a week, at least I have a Sabbath to be able to honor. America used to do this. We have blue laws. It used to work really well. I truly believe it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons why America has become a less happy country, more depressed and more anxious, is because we are hurrying ourselves into oblivion. It is the joyless search for joy. And that is what modernity has given us. You want a 3,000-year-old hack? Just stop for once a week. Okay, the second thing, which is also part of the 10 Commandments, which I wasn't planning on talking about this. I was so moved by a conversation I had upstairs, which this is mostly for young people, but it's also for all people. It's so incredibly important. And this is something that if I were to say one thing that college does not do a good job of, it is telling young people that you have a moral obligation to honor your parents. And I cannot emphasize how important this is. And I'm not saying you have to love your parents. As a Christian, it does say that in the New Testament, but just focusing on this word honor means to treat your parents heavily. If you do not honor your parents, and you do not, and it doesn't just say that, it comes with a promise, also involves your nation, because it says, honor your mother and father so that you may live long in the land of which you are in. You think about it, as America has stopped honoring our parents, we have become less free and closer to totalitarianism. The less that we honor our parents, the less likely we are to be able to engage in self-government. This is not the most popular message to give on college campuses, because the propaganda that is typically said on not just this campus, all campuses, is your parents don't know as much as we know, we're enlightened and they're not. And for your sake and their sake, for the country's sake, I want to implore you, you will be a happier, wealthier person and a healthier person if you do the work to honor your parents. And I'll give you two specific reasons. Number one, as you get older, especially if you have a child, which, by the way, I think this is a thought crime. You should get married and have children. You will be happier and healthier and wealthier if you do those three things, by the way. It changes your life for the better. Once you have children, your respect of your parents goes up dramatically. It does. And they're worthy of honoring. They are. Now you might say, Charlie, I have the worst parent in the world. Dennis has written so much about that topic, you guys can just go into it with him and ask him questions about it. Here's the point. 99% of you tonight do not have abusive parents. They might have different politics, they might have different views, they might have different religion. None of that is an excuse not to honor them, period. You talk to them and you spend time with them. Okay, last thing. I have no idea how I'm doing on time. I think I'm okay, but all right. How do you live a healthier, wealthier, happier life? I didn't come up with this. The next speakers are going to talk about this. You have to go through the intentional steps of being thankful. Every single person in this room has something to be thankful for. Modernity in general, and unfortunately far too many colleges, will encourage you to be ungrateful, not grateful. Here's something that we all can say that we should be thankful for that I'm afraid we are losing. We live in the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world. The second part of that is you didn't build it. You inherited it. So don't mess it up. You see, the brilliance, the heroism, the courage, the piety, the virtue that went into building this civilization was not a mistake. And I'm afraid we're not telling young people that as best as we could. And so when I hear that America is systemically racist, bigoted from the start, colonialist, misogynistic, homophobic, all these different things, and I think to myself, you live in the freest, well, the once freest country. I don't know if we're still the freest, but I'll use that as a general sweeping term. Definitely the most successful materially, without a doubt the most benevolent, the most generous country ever to exist in the history of the world. Are you even able in a 30-second soundbite tell me why? Or are you able to recite the reasons why there's all these flawed injustices? Here's just a really simple truism for life, is that most countries are crummy. They are. You happen to live in a good one. That's a reason to be thankful. Okay. Second thing that I encourage you to do, blame yourself for your own problems. There are exceptions to all rules, and I'm sure somebody here could tell me an exception of something so terrible that happened to you and that you got to deal with that. But 99.9% of all of you watching online or here, you are the reason you are unhappy, you are the reason you are poor, and you are the reason you are not where you want to be. Period. That is actually very empowering. As Viktor Frankl famously said in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that I encourage all of you to read, there was a patient that came into his office one day, and he said, "Boy, I hope there's something wrong with me." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, if there's something wrong with me, then I can fix it. But if there's something wrong with society, then there's no hope." So if you are not where you want to be, that should actually be really empowering. Maybe you can work harder, wake up earlier, stop drinking, stop doing hookup culture, stop doing drugs, become a better person, read a book, get off TikTok, stop spending so much time on your phone. You are to blame for where you are. It's not your parents' fault. It's not society's fault. It's not racism's fault. It's not transphobia's fault. It's you. So decide who you want to be. And finally, the last thing I'll say, and I suppose I'm somewhat approximating my time limit, right? So am I okay-ish? I'll land the plane? Okay, got it. They're giving me the hard pull. I have no prompt. I was once on a college campus and someone said, "Charlie, there is no such thing as absolute truth." And I asked, "Do you believe that absolutely?" The people that are telling you there's no truth in the world are pretty convinced that that is true. At some point, you're going to have to live in somebody's truth. There is a truth. I hope you find it. There is a God, and you are not him. He wants you to be happy and healthy and to honor him. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Now it's time for our panel event. So I'm going to give you a very brief introduction for these three distinguished speakers, and we're going to jump right in. Dr. Radha Gopalan is a board-certified heart transplant cardiologist and expert in Western and Eastern medicine whose approach to health and wellness centers care around one's spirit and personality as opposed to a symptom-centered method. Dr. Gopalan will share his perspective on health. Robert Kiyosaki is the author of best-selling books, including New York Times #1 bestseller, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, an entrepreneur, investor, and educator who has challenged and changed the way millions of people around the world think about money. Robert Kiyosaki will talk about wealth. Dennis Prager is and has been host of a national radio show for the last 25 years, author of 10 best-selling books, including Happiness is a Serious Problem, is host of the Happiness Hour Weekly, and founder of online PragerU, which has more than 5 billion views, mostly among young people. Dennis Prager will share his insights on happiness. Let's extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists. Testing. All right, so this will be a conversation, panel discussion. I'm going to start with Dr. Gopalan, then Robert, then Dennis, and we'll just see what direction this conversation goes. So first, Dr. Gopalan, you have noted that a lot of individuals believe they are in good health when they do not exhibit any symptoms. I comprehend that your perspective on health differs. Can you explain your perspective and answer the question, what is health?
Thank you, Anne. So health, you're right. Most of us think that health, if you don't have any symptoms or a disease, you're healthy. In my experience, if we waited for symptoms to happen, we have already lost the health. The definition by WHO defines health as physical, mental, social well-being, not merely the absence of disease. So the absence of disease does not guarantee that you are healthy. The health is already lost by the time we have symptoms. If one looks at how disease happens, I have an MD, doctor of disease, doctor of medicine, and I take care of people who have diseases. However, the disease doesn't manifest overnight. The symptoms, when the symptoms happen, the disease did not start the day before. It originates and starts weeks, months, and years before. In the literature, we know in the scientific world, in medicine, that the atherosclerotic cardiovascular diseases, blood vessel diseases, start at the age of 10. But it does not manifest in heart attacks or heart disease until you're well into your 30s, 40s, and 50s. So the disease has already started. Therefore, if you waited for symptoms, we are not going to understand what health is. So what is health? Essentially, the definition of WHO tells us what it looks like. So we are good with that. However, it is not practical. So what health is an ability of the individual to balance. So it is a skill that everyone possesses that can be cultivated and developed and mastered to be healthy so that we can prevent disease, or if you had disease, you can actually overcome it much more easily with the help of the medicine. In fact, in order for medicine to work, you have to have health. And in an unhealthy body, medicines don't work. So that's what health is. It's a skill. It's an ability of the individual to be able to balance it.
Thank you. And you have such a different perspective on health, and that segues here to our next speaker, Robert. Robert, can you explain your philosophy on money and how it differs from traditional financial advice?
Thank you all for being here. It's my honor. I'm honored to be, this is my doctor, and this is my teacher on happiness. And so the definition of wealth comes from this man here. His name is Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller. And Harvard claims him as one of their greatest graduates. Unfortunately, he got thrown out of Harvard, and he never graduated. And he is probably most known for the geodesic dome. And his definition of wealth is your ability to survive without working. And what's happening to America, and my concern for you, the students, as he wrote about in this book here, The Grunch of Giants, came out in 84, 74. Our wealth is being stolen by our financial system. So our wealth is being stolen via the very money you go to. So when somebody says to you, go to school, get a job, work hard, pay taxes, and invest and get out of debt and invest in the stock market, that's all indoctrination. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Okay. But let me tell you why I'm honored to be here, because Ann and I worked together at the Barrett Honors College. And all summer long, I was teaching entrepreneurship. And some of the students are here tonight. Would you guys stand up, the students are in the college? I mean, at the college. Please stand. And the thing that I think was interesting was I was teaching capitalism. And I taught all summer long. I didn't catch any grief for it. And I think the students liked it, and they so inspired me. This is my commercial message, is that I'm going to be teaching what I taught the Barrett students April 6th, 7th, and 8th on my birthday. My birthday's April 8th. And so the inspiration carries on. But the answer to short answer to a long question was the honor I have is Rich Dad Poor Dad is still #1 after 25 years, internationally. Thank you. And it was inspired by this book, The Grunge of Giants. And my concern for young people is this: you're being ripped off. Okay. And, but through your education. They don't teach you about money. So tonight I'll be speaking on what money really is, okay? But the book that inspired me is this book here, is called The Communist Manifesto. And that's my long way of saying it. When I was 18 years old, I couldn't get accepted at the University of Hawaii because my grades were so bad. My father was poor dad. He was a teacher at University of Hawaii, PhD. And so I couldn't get into University of Hawaii. And they let dead people go there. I mean, you don't have to do anything. But they wouldn't let me in. So what happened is I applied to my congressman, and I got congressional nominations to Naval Academy and Merchant Marine Academy. And I really wanted to go to the Merchant Marine Academy. So when I was 18 years old, I get to my economics teacher, and he has us read this book. I'm 18 years old. My economics teacher was a West Point graduate. See, military guys are different than what I call snowflake colleges. I'm going to get my ass for this one. But anyway, so what my economics teacher taught me is you got to read this book, because he says you must know your enemy. So when I was 18 years old, I read the Communist Manifesto, and this was the hard part, and please don't take it wrong. I love my dad. I love my family. My teachers were great teachers. My family are primarily teachers. Most of them have PhDs. And I said to my father, what does PhD stand for? He says, I mean, you're smart. I said, no, it stands for poor, helpless, and desperate, because you don't think about money. So I've had problems in school, you can tell. But anyway, I read this book here, I'll be talking about it tonight, is I realized my family are Marxists. And that was the hard part. And so when I talked to teachers, I said, read this book. I recommend all students read this book, because this book changed my life, and now people say Rich Dad, Poor Dad changed our lives. But it was understanding what Marx said in 1848. It came true. He said communism would take over America in 2 stages. And that happened in 1930 and 2020. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As you'll see, we'll get into later in this program, Robert has a very macroeconomic perspective on money. So people go to him and say, tell us about money, and they think they're going to hear about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and 401ks, and he has just really a macro view. So continuing with kind of contrarian thinking, Dennis, we talk so much about happiness. The Lewis Center exists with a core focus on happiness. We'd love your perspective to what do you believe are the key components to achieving happiness? What are we not taught? What are those key components?
So I'll answer you in just a moment. I just have to devote a moment or two, first of all, to thanking the president of Arizona State University and the university for having us. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . that 35 or 37 professors at Barrett College condemned the university for having me and Charlie and Robert. It has nothing to do with Charlie, Robert, or me. It's entirely about them. It speaks very poorly about them. They know nothing about what any of us stands for. They fear, correctly, that if a person like myself is given 90 minutes on a college campus, we will undo all of what they have taught for 4 years. It's a valid fear. I will say that. By the way, I just want to note, as Charlie did it on his behalf, I have millions of listeners to my national radio show. Any one of those professors is welcome to come on. I treat all of my guests, no matter how much contempt I may have for them. I do. I treat them very well. I interviewed Howard Zinn, the leading leftist in the United States of his generation, and you can see it. It's on YouTube. How respectful I was. So if they are not just a herd, they are welcome on the show, and I will happily come to Phoenix to be interviewed by them in any of their classes. They give me 30 students, I'll give them 2 million listeners. So I just want to make that clear. So your question on happiness was?
Now I want to change my question. What do you believe, let's start simple, are the key components to achieving happiness?
Oh, I know what they are. I absolutely do. The number one, and there isn't even a close second, is gratitude. That's it. If it is not possible, I'll tell you how important gratitude is. You cannot be a good person if you're not grateful, and that's the reason that universities produce a lot of bad people, like some of those who shut down speech. It is because, as I have said so often on my radio show, in America today you get a BA in ingratitude, a master's in ingratitude, and a PhD in ingratitude. I'll never forget at the university, I think it was the University of Wyoming, but it may have been another one, I ask people who differ with me to line up first, and I take their questions. The opposite of what you just saw with the 35 professors. I welcome dissent. I encourage it. And a young woman got up and said, "Are you telling me that we women are not oppressed in America?" And having studied the Holocaust and the Soviet Union, that was my field of study at Columbia University, communist affairs. I learned Russian. I was in communist countries a great deal. I know what oppression is. This girl hasn't a clue as to what oppression. If you think you're oppressed because you're a woman in America, there is something wrong with you, not America. So to say the least, this girl's not a happy girl. If you walk around, I have a chapter in my book on happiness, which was cited earlier. I'm very touched. There's a chapter on if you think you're a victim, you can't be happy. Charlie mentioned that as well. That is a given. So if you think you're a victim, you're not grateful. Obviously, nobody's grateful for being a victim. Except in America, where it gives you some status right now. If you're a member of a victim group, you have status. But other than that, it is not happy. So gratitude is number one. Gratitude is the mother of goodness. There are no good ingrates. It's an oxymoron. And it is the mother of happiness. You cannot be happy if you are not grateful. So gratitude is the single most important thing a human being can possess, along with wisdom. But wisdom is a moral issue, and so you're asking me about happiness. It begins with being grateful. And that is the answer to your question. The second thing you need is meaning. Viktor Frankl was cited earlier. It's one of the 10 books that most influenced me after the Bible, and it is called Man's Search for Meaning. This was a Jewish psychoanalyst who went through the Holocaust, and he wrote a book on his experience in a Nazi death camp, in a concentration camp, which miraculously he survived. And he noted, as a result, and it changed my life. I read it in high school. The single greatest need that the human being has is for meaning. It is even greater than for sex. We had Marx, who said it's money. We are an economic being. Freud said we're a sexual being. And Frankl said we are a meaning-needing being. There are many people who do not have much or even any sex. And if they have meaning, they can be happy. But if you have sex every day and don't have meaning, you are an unhappy person. Meaning is everything. What we're living through, and this is my final comment on this particular question, what we are living through is the age of the death of meaning. G.K. Chesterton, they attribute this quote to. It's not verified that he said it, but I only cite it because I don't want to take credit for a great quote that I didn't make up. And he is reported to have said, when people stop believing in God, they don't believe in nothing, they believe in anything. People need to believe in something. What we have in America and the West today are post-Judeo-Christian secular religions, and indeed they believe in anything. If you believe men give birth, you believe in anything.
And may I add something? The reason this event is on is because of gratitude. So I want to say this is my doctor. I got COVID in 2019, and Dr. Gopalan is a doctor of East and West medicine. And he said to me, the reason you have COVID is because you're unhealthy. That was a shot across the bow, because I always assumed I was healthy. And so because of Dr. Gopalan today, you know, I'm wearing my Marine Corps flight jacket. Okay. The gratitude is I fit in it. Because when I was issued this jacket, I was 21 years old. I was a U.S. Marine, 32-inch waist, 40-inch chest, and fit. So to put this on, thank you, Dr. Gopalan, because I didn't fit in it before. And then I want to thank Dennis Prager, because what he's saying is exactly true, is when I listen to him on happiness, I realized something he said to me. He says, happiness, I was so success-driven. You know, I became very rich, but I wasn't happy. And so when I listened to Dennis Prager, he said, it's, you know, you've got to, you know, that's the issue. So what I changed, and I'm grateful to you, is every morning I get up because I'm so driven to get rich and be successful. But I get up every morning because of Dennis Prager, what I'm grateful for. I say to myself every morning, I have a moral responsibility to be happy. Even though I may not be happy, even no matter what's going on inside me, no matter what's going on outside me, and no matter what's going on inside of me. So thank you, Dennis Prager, because it has made me a much happier person. So thank you.
Well, if I touched you, I've already led a meaningful life. So that means the world to me. I just do want to say, this I know changes people's lives, that we have a moral obligation to act happy even if we don't feel it. People don't think of happiness as a moral issue. They think of it as an emotional issue. Either I feel happy or I don't feel happy. My response to that is, it's irrelevant. Bad moods are like bad breath. Don't inflict it on other people.
All right, we're going to move and segue this into spirituality, because we're talking about happiness, we're talking about spirit. So I'd like to go to Dr. Gopalan first and then back to Dennis next. So Dr. Gopalan, You have likely seen the interplay between physical and emotional factors in the health of your patients. In your professional experience, what role do you believe the human spirit plays in overall health and well-being?
Thank you, Anne. The human spirit is the most important factor in health and well-being. That is the single most driver of health, success, happiness, and anything we do in life. After having been in transplant and seeing patients in heart transplant world, every day you deal with patients who have perhaps 2 to 3 years to live. They have a 80% chance of not living beyond 2 or 3 years. And you get to meet them and they get to share with you their personal experiences and emotions. But what you see at that point in patients is the fact that all the pretensions go away because you don't have any more life. You are fearful of living a shorter time. And when the pretensions go away, their spirit comes out. The fake self melts away and the true self comes out. And the true self in each one of us consists of 5 intelligences. These intelligences are physical intelligence that we always deal with. We go to exercise, we want to look good, we want to have a perfect body. That's physical intelligence that we engage in on a daily basis. Likewise, mental intelligence is one of the 5 that drives our understanding of the world around us. At this point in time, most of us in the audience, including myself, is exercising our mental intelligence. That's what's predominating. And the third one is the emotional intelligence, which usually is triggered by mental intelligence and physical intelligence. So as you can see, when I tell a joke, you laugh, you're happy. And then if I tell something that you don't believe in, you will be unhappy or upset about it. That's an emotion. That every one of us have that. That's an emotional intelligence. Below that level is the true self, is the spiritual level. And beyond the spiritual level is the universe and the universal intelligence that we all are attached to. The emotional intelligence is what plays the pivotal role in either directing you towards a spirit or towards the mental logic. So the role that spirit plays, based on my experience on patients, is that we, in the United States, we have the best medical system. We have all the new technologies and everything that the world can provide if you have a disease. Why our patients keep coming back to us? If I treated someone for a disease, the patient should be able to avoid coming back to me frequently. But that's not what we see over and over again. Patients always keep coming back to you. There's something wrong. Medicine is working. Medicine works. It has its ability to treat the disease. But what is lacking is the health of the patient to make the medicine work better. But what the health is lacking is the spirit of the patient. And I'll tell you a small story. I had a patient of mine who had heart failure. He needed heart transplantation. But he was in our world, we call non-compliance. In other words, he wasn't doing what he was recommended. He was eating whatever he wanted. He was not motivated enough to do things to make him eligible for transplant. So he had perhaps 20% chance of living the next 3 years. Even with that information, he couldn't change his pattern of living. His lifestyle was still detrimental to his life. So as a result, he was not a candidate for heart transplant. You cannot be a heart transplant candidate if you cannot comply with the recommendations, because hearts are not available that much for everyone to have it. So every time I talked to him, I felt like I was a failure because we are not changing him. One fine day, I sat down with him, with my coordinators, and I didn't talk medicine to him. I talked to him. And I said, I'm worried about you. I'm worried that you're not going to do well. I'm worried you don't have much time. I'm worried that we can do so much if we can change you. This is a conversation that I don't always have with my patients. I always tell them what to do. But here I'm sharing my emotions about him. That made the difference. He looked at me and said, "Doc, what do I have to do?" So when you tell someone you need to do this, this, and this, they resist. But when you tell someone, "I'm worried about you," they listen. So when we told him what needed to be done, what needs to be accomplished, when the goals are given, not telling him what to do, here are the goals. He used to come to my clinic in a wheelchair. After 6 weeks, he came walking in a pair of shorts. I did not recognize him. Subsequently, he became a heart transplant patient. He got transplanted, and he's living happily thereafter. And I believe that day I touched his spirit. That's the conversation in health we need to have with our patients. It's easy to prescribe a medicine, tell them to take it. But changing people to change themselves, to empower themselves to be healthy, has a bigger magnitude of reward than medicines itself. Medicines work, but we are missing something else as well.
Thank you. Robert, did you have something to add to that?
Well, Dr. Gopalan talked to me he talked to me all those years, but when I had COVID, he kind of touched my soul. He says, "You're going to die." So Marines take it in the face, it's good. But without him talking to me, I wouldn't be fitting this jacket. But the other thing that Dr. Gopalan and I talk about was the first time I had heart surgery, he'd come in and put acupuncture needles in me. But he had to hide from the other doctors, right? Because it was like, oh my God, what's he doing? But he was also talking to me spiritually. And I want to talk about spirituality as we talk about it. I think this is my belief, and Dennis said it about meaning. We all have a mission in life. We're all sent here to do something. And every time I talk to Dr. Gopalan, I get clear on what I'm supposed to do. So like I said, I read this book here when I was 18. When I was 19, I was sent to Vietnam for the first time. Why was I sent to Vietnam? When you see war, you understand communism and Marxism. So that was when I was 19. And so I got the high-paying job with Standard Oil when I graduated from the King's Point in oil. I was working for Standard Oil. And my soul felt empty because I was making a lot of money. My classmates in 1969, some were making $120,000 a year. That's not bad for 1969. I was a little lower paid because I refused to go union. I had to join the union to make that much money. But as this book says here, is that workers of the world unite. My father, poor dad, was head of the labor union, and I couldn't do it. So my spirit was saying, don't do it. So I joined Standard Oil. I have to quit, and I joined the U.S. Marine Corps because my spirit was saying, you got to go there. So I flew the helicopter gunship, went down 3 times. The #1 job of a Marine lieutenant is bring his men home. And I brought my men home. That was my mission. But the problem was when we landed at Norton Air Force Base, this is January 10th, 1973, every combatant knows the day they rotate out of the war zone. January 10th, 1973, I arrived at Norton Air Force Base, and all the Woodstock generation, the hippies and all that, were hit with eggs and spit on and called baby killers. And I stood there looking at them, and my commanding officer, was a lieutenant colonel, said to me, he says, gentlemen, this is what we fought for. We fought for the right of those hippies to spit on us. Never forget that. And that's what, when I joined Dennis Prager and all that, what drives us is meaning. It's what drives us. And that's what when I talk to Dr. Gopalan, you know I'm driven, you know, because that's what's killing me. So let me just say one more thing, what drives me here. God has, I'm not really religious, I'm not preaching, okay, you know what I mean? If I entered a church, they'd fall down. But anyway, so when I was in 1964, I held a coin up, and this is a U.S. quarter in 1964. The reason this is important, I was a kid looking at it going, what does that mean? It was now copper. There was a copper tinge on it. So what happened in 1964 was President Johnson took the silver out of our coinage. And then why was I in Vietnam? Well, when the NVA was running south through Quang Tri, we were getting our asses kicked. I was said, go look for gold. So in 1972, I went to look for gold because in 1971, Nixon took this out of our money. This is a gold coin. And I was going, why am I so interested in money? Why am I looking at this thing? So I bought my first gold coin. It was $50. I still have it today. It's now worth $2,500. But every time I talked to Radha, it didn't make sense. Why was I so interested in money? And so when I speak to people today, and this is silver, for those who are interested in investments, this is the greatest investment today. You can buy this for about $30. Everybody can afford $30. Because what I'm saying to people is this here is fake. This is trash. This is fake money. And my drive is our school system teaches us to work for fake money. Go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, and invest in the stock market. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying think about it. I don't invest in the stock market. I don't have to, but I'm not saying you shouldn't. But this is fake money. And my concern is, ladies and gentlemen, my generation, the boomer generation, is screwing the next generation, you guys. You see that what is happening today is they talk about the baby boom, but the baby boom is going bust. And is guys like Dr. Gopalan are having guys like me live longer. So most of you young people out there, your mother and father are going to be your care. You could be taking care of them because Social Security and Medicare is going bust because of this here. So the reason when I don't go to many schools because I'm not invited there, but I always ask the young people, I said, what did school teach you about money? And most of them say nothing, but that's my mission. So that's what Dennis talks about meaning. My job is to do my best to tell you not work for this crap here. This is fake money. And my generation is effing you guys. Because what's happening, we're living longer, right? Yep. Boomers are living longer, but there's fewer younger people coming up. All across China, there's fewer younger people. Japan, there's fewer younger people. When Social Security came up, there was one worker, 16 workers for one recipient. Today, it's 3 to 1. When you guys graduate from school, it'll be 1 to 1. Thank you very much. That's what drives me.
So, quick comment, Robert. You are welcome here. Just so you all know, Robert, this is his 7th time coming to Barrett. Not once has he made a dime, volunteering his time, teaching our students about entrepreneurship, investing, and money. Thank you. You are welcome here.
Thank you.
And then...
I hate to admit this. When Ann pitched me the deal last year about this time, I said, you're crazy. You know, I said, I'd rather go back to Vietnam.
Okay, now I'm going to ask Dennis about success and happiness, but first, do you have any remarks or anything you'd like to say about what was just shared?
Oh, I have a whole speech to say about what was just said. By the way, there is somebody in the audience that I would like to introduce. 3 professors did, in fact, write an open letter dissenting from the herd and said we have to hear at ASU people we may differ with, a total of 3 people, 3 professors in the entire university. One of them is here, and I'd like to honor him, Professor Owen Anderson. Would you please stand wherever you are? So I have theories on a lot of things. My brain works that way. I want to understand life. In high school, I wanted to. So I'd like to offer you a thought on the subject that most preoccupies me. Happiness is certainly up there, but there's something even more. It's goodness. The single most important question any society can ask is, how do you produce good people? Because we don't start out good. Only the truly naive adult children believe that human nature is basically good. Anyone who knows anything about history or the world knows what a silly, silly idea that is. We don't have an evil nature, but we don't have a good nature, where it's a very mixed bag, and it's much easier to do bad than to do good. That's why parents say to their children, say thank you about 10,000 times. If we were born with a good nature, we'd have to say it to our child once. The child would say, oh, of course, I just want to express gratitude for anyone who has done good to me, so I will say thank you from now on. But they have to tell them thousands of times to do so. One of the things I have learned, because I have studied goodness as much as I have studied evil, I find evil more comprehensible than great goodness, unfortunately, because it's so easy to do great evil and it's so hard to do great goodness. All good is done by outliers. That's a very important lesson about life. The herd never does good. The outliers do good. Not every outlier does good, but everyone who does good is an outlier. So those 3 professors are outliers, and they should be honored as the people who do good, not the sheep who don't want us here. That question is a big one. How do you produce good people? And Charlie made reference to this because it's such a big theme in my life. You have to fight yourself. When people call my show, and we talk about everything, I've talked with more people than any living human being. I've not talked to more people, but with more people. 40 years as a talk show host, I have talked with more people. I have learned an immense amount from these people. And I have learned what makes people tick. And an example, people will call me and say, Dennis, my wife and I just had our first child. Any thoughts on raising a child? And I said, yes, I have a thought. Self-control is infinitely more important than self-esteem. And that really resonates with them. The moment I say that, they go, wow, okay, now I know what to do. That is exactly right. Also, I have other guidelines in that regard. A statement I came out with many years ago, your kids are going to hate you anyway, so you might as well do the right thing. The desire of parents to be loved by their children has ruined the last 3 generations of Americans. Your task, this is for everybody. Everyone should know this. The only people you should seek to be loved by are your friends and your spouse. That's it. Everyone else, you should just do the right thing. And if you are not loved by them, so be it. Any leader who wants to be loved will be an awful leader. Stalin was loved. Hitler was loved. It means nothing to be a loved leader. Nothing. Lincoln was assassinated. Stalin was loved. It is not important to be loved as a parent as much as you want it. You must do the right thing and that will always entail times in your child's life when you are not their favorite person. A leader cannot aspire to be loved by a people. A teacher cannot aspire to be loved by students. You must do the right thing. However, friends and spouse, you should work very hard to be loved by them. I believe in that deeply. And another theory of mine, I have a few favorite words in English. I'll give you two of them. One is earn. This should be right up your alley, I know that. I love the word earn, and by the way, it is almost in no other language than English, earn. In most languages, the word for earn it means to win, like in Spanish or in French. In Hebrew, it means to profit. Most languages do not have a word to earn. English does. And you should work to earn everything, including your spouse's love. You must work at it. That is why I support morally the concept of divorce, which bothers many of my religious listeners, and that's okay. I don't seek to be loved by my listeners. I live by what I preach. But if you know you can never be divorced, it's like knowing you can never be fired from a job. You probably won't do a great job. It is not good to ever think, I cannot lose this person or this job. It is a job to be a husband. It is a job to be a wife. It is a job to be a parent. And you must earn what you have from them. And that is why that's one of my two favorite words. My other is also unique to English. Almost unique, let's put it that way. The word like. I like more than I like love. A lot of parents love their kids. A lot of parents don't like their kids. Like is a very big deal. If you like your spouse, that's a good marriage. Sometimes you'll be in love. That's a bonus. But do you like your husband? That's the key question.
All right, a quick follow-up for Dennis here. Multiple Barrett Honors students, and they're the overachievers of the overachievers here, they have expressed disappointment after reaching some of their goals as the happiness that they expected to feel was not present. So Dennis, what are the key factors to understand regarding the connection between success or achievement and happiness?
Well, you can't get more successful than the man sitting next to me, and he himself says to your great credit that you open up to people like that. With his millions and millions of dollars and massive, incredible best-selling works, he still wasn't happy.
Amen.
Amen, he just said, in case you don't read
lips.
lips.
Let me say something else. The person that told me that was my wife. And Dennis.
You know what? You're married to a good woman.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
She said to me, she says, you're so successful, but you're not happy. Mm-hmm. So she divorced me. But no, the price is high because I love her with all my heart. Yeah, I never cheated on her and all this stuff. But success didn't make me happy. Millions didn't make me happy. So that's why I thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and it touches my heart. So this is really important for all of you, especially if you're a young person, a student, or whatever. Many Americans, most Americans of the middle class, upper class, they raise their children with basically one overwhelming goal: get into a good college. There are almost no good colleges, so the point is irrelevant. But that's beside the point. No, I say it with great sadness because I love the world of learning, but it has been ruined in high schools as well as colleges. But in any event, I just want you to know a dissenting view. I didn't give a damn if my kids got into a good college. I didn't even give a damn if my kids went to college. And they knew that from the get-go. I never asked them about their grades. I only monitored their character. Because it is infinitely more important to be a good person than a good student. They are not related at all. They may be related, but they are not necessarily related. It is possible to be brilliant and despicable. So that's a non-issue. Or as one man who I knew many years ago, in his thick Russian accent, said to audiences all the time, "It is very possible to be a PhD and an SOB." It was completely accurate, and there are many people who so qualify. I raised my kids, and they know it, and they knew it. I cared about their character. I didn't care about their grades. Because in the final analysis, being a decent human being, fighting your nature, working every day to be a better person will make you a much happier person than being a success. Because I'll tell you why, among other reasons, you'll never reach enough success to be happy. Because once you get successful, what then? So let's say you get into a quote-unquote great college, good college, prestigious college. Then what? Then what do you do with the rest of your life? So you're now 21 and you got into Harvard. Wow. What do you do at 23 when you graduated? Go into a great big firm in New York City? Wow, what a life. There is more depression among young Americans than ever in recorded American life today. And a lot of them are quote-unquote successful and went to college and got good grades. So you need to fill your life with meaning, and you need to work on yourself. Self-control is the key to happiness. It is the key to goodness. Work on you. I'll end this little soliloquy in this way. The difference between a religious education and a secular education. I went to a yeshiva. It's a Jewish Orthodox school. Half the day was in Hebrew, religious subjects, half the day in English, secular subjects. It was very intense. I did it till the age of 19. And I realized when I became an adult that I had a very, very, very different education from most kids at a secular school. And the biggest difference was this. I learned, as do Christian kids in Christian schools, by the way. This is not just true for a religious Jewish school. I learned that the biggest problem in Dennis Prager's life is Dennis Prager. And they learn in secular schools, at least for the last 2 or 3 generations, that the biggest problem in their life is something outside of them. America, sexism, racism, parents, but not them. And that produces bad people and ungrateful people and unhappy people. So all these ideas, they meld together in making a better and happier human being.
Robert, I'm going to ask you about real assets and fake assets. Could you share your perspectives on the distinction between real assets and fake assets? I'm going back here to his paper money gold coin here. Given your stance on avoiding investments in the stock market and your recommendations against a traditional diversified portfolio of stock, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs.
Yeah, again, I want to thank the Barrett Honors Program that you brought me into. Like I said, I'd rather go back to Vietnam. I was terrified, because my poor dad is an educator, and I knew what I was going to run up against. So when I taught with the honor students here all summer long with my real assets, my team, see, I invest as a team player. And they got to meet my tax guy, they got to meet my accountant, they got to meet Dr. Gopalan, they got to meet why I don't pay taxes, why I use debt. And it was such an inspiring event talking to them all summer long. This is my commercial message. April 6th, 7th, 8th, I'm going to do the same program because they inspired me. But I'm going to start teaching the way I was taught, that business and entrepreneurship's a team sport. And I get hammered, by the academics because I write such wonderful books like A students work for C students, that they really don't appreciate that. and, and, and the reason I say that is the most important thing I learned coming through getting spit on, you know, being a Marine pilot and all this, is that lieutenant colonel who turned to our group of men, young Marine pilots, and said, "Gentlemen, this is what we fought for. We fought for the freedom of speech. They have the right to spit on you. They have the right to hit eggs on you. They have the right to call you baby killer. That's what we fought for." So the biggest lesson I want to say to young people, like those 3 teachers that spoke out, speak up. Right or wrong, speak up. And never stop speaking, because it takes courage to do what Dennis does, what Charlie does. It takes courage to speak up. What Rada's doing, when he had to put acupuncture in, he had to close the door because the other doctors would say, "Que pasa, man? What are you doing?" You know? But I never stopped speaking up. So if you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, he played my cash flow game, it's about one thing. It's about your financial statement. What I say that gets me in trouble with all the academics is my banker has never asked me for my financial statement. They don't care. I mean, my banker has never asked for my GPA. They've never asked what school I went to. They want to see my financial statement. So I never stop. I never stop fighting back. I never stop communicating. So I brought this tonight. This is the license plate from my Ferrari. And the funny thing is, my classmate from the academy says, "You over-exaggerated." I kept failing out of school, but what kept me going was I never stopped standing up. I never stopped speaking up. And that's what the U.S. Marine Corps taught me. So when they spit on me, hit me with eggs, it just inspired me to fight back, to inspire me to speak out. So do not let anybody take your freedom of speech away, because that's what we fought for.
Thank you. I want to pause here for a minute, because what the Rich Dad team this fall semester was remarkable. We had a group of 70 Barrett students that went through a 5-part workshop series with Rada, his whole team, the Rich Dad advisors. They all taught to their own specialties. But we started that workshop series teaching the cash flow board game. So I bring this up to honor you and to thank you, but also because you're talking about the importance of a balance sheet, the importance of financial statements. Can you tell us about the cash flow board game and how Rich Dad uses that as a tool to help really teach people about money?
Well, another class I flunked out is my MBA program. I flunk everything. I don't do well in school. It's, you know, there's a saying that if there's an old Irish proverb that goes, "If I knew where I was going to die, I wouldn't go there." And that's why I don't do well in school. So I'm in the MBA program listening to my accounting teacher, and this guy was so full of shit he couldn't see straight, man. I knew more about accounting for him because my rich dad was teaching me. So that's why I realized, and then the worst part about accounting, it's taught by boring people. And it's no fun. And it's horrifying. So I learned all my financial stuff playing Monopoly. And most people know it. 4 greenhouses, 1031 tax-deferred exchange, so you don't pay taxes. So I still play Monopoly, and so somebody said, "Well, how do you teach a financial statement?" And that was, as an entrepreneur, right? That's the challenge. How do you make something excruciatingly boring fun? So with my wife and I, Kim, we created the cash flow board game. Some of the people that helped me develop are here, like Karen Shell and all this. Before there was a Rich Dad, and we were just kind of blindly putting this game together, in the blind. And we would sit at this pizza shop, and it was called a two or three pitcher night, because the brain cells into making accounting fun. I thought I died and went to heaven every night, drinking beer, trying to kill the pain in my head. But I didn't realize this, but one of the greatest educational educators is Maria Montessori. She is a brilliant educator. And what she does is brilliant. And she is an educational entrepreneur. She's an outlier, like you say. Brilliant woman. But she says, what the hand does, the mind remembers. So when I sat there listening to some boring accounting teacher telling me about a subject he didn't know anything about, I had to do something. And so that was the meaning. I'm still getting even for that MBA program I flunked out of. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Dr. Gopalan, you have a wonderful book, Second Opinion, and I'd love for you to talk just from a high level about the integration between Eastern and Western medicine. How do you believe this integration between Eastern and Western medicine can help improve healthcare outcomes?
I think the Eastern philosophies and Western philosophies appear to be diametrically opposed when you look at them at face value. So if you talk to an Eastern practitioner, they would say that Western practitioners do harm to patients with our methods of doing medications, surgeries, whatever we do.
May I hold up the book?
Yes, thank you, Robert.
It's called The Second Opinion. So all of you medical students, read this book along with the Communist Manifesto, okay?
So as a result, there's a notion that Western medicine is evil or not really good for you, which is not correct. I practice Western medicine. I believe in what it does.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
Eastern medicine believe the healing is inside of you, not outside.
Exactly.
Thank you. Eastern medicine believes the healing is inside of you.
Absolutely.
And Western medicine, it's outside of you.
Yeah.
That's the difference, isn't it?
That's correct.
The doctor does it to you.
Yes. So as a result, and if you talk to a Western medical practitioner, most of us, including myself when I was in med school, thought that the Eastern practitioners are quacks and they are like actually cheating. So that's exactly what led me to enter the acupuncture school in Sri Lanka when the medical school closed for a short period. I wanted to see how the practitioner was cheating their patients. Because I didn't believe in acupuncture. I was a third-year medical student. I was learning scientific ways of understanding disease. I did not realize that at that time that I was learning about disease and not about health. And I did not realize at that time acupuncture was about health and not about disease. That distinction was not apparent to me. So from where I was perched, I was looking at acupuncture as something that's quackery. How can bare needles put into certain points in the body make a difference in a patient's disease? So I went to the school to learn about it. I graduated as an acupuncturist, but what I realized is about 60% of the time, the acupuncture worked. But what's the difference? Well, I'm learning how to prescribe medications to patients to treat diseases. And the guy who did acupuncture, and I asked him, how does it work as a student? And he said, it balances your energy. And I said, what does it even mean? Little did I know that in the physiology lecture room, I had already learned about balance, but I never connected it. The entire field of physiology and then subsequent pathophysiology in Western medicine is based on what is called homeostasis. Our body is designed naturally to balance. That's the only job our body does. That's about healing. Healing is balancing. If you cut your skin and you leave it for 2 days, it would scar up and heal. You don't have to do anything. That's the body's ability. Healing is in us. That's what Robert was saying. Healing is inside us. What we do with Western medicine is facilitate that healing to be a little better than the pathogen or the disease that is stealing the health of the people. So there is no reason why Eastern medicine and Western medicine has to be opposing each other. They actually don't. They complement each other. The Eastern philosophies are about health. Western philosophies are about disease. They work well together. And if you look at disease, it doesn't start when you have symptoms, as I mentioned before. My job as a heart transplant cardiologist is to identify patients who need to have their heart replaced. That's fine. That's a structural problem. That heart did not get sick overnight. And we know in Western medicine, there are biochemical changes that happen in the body that continuously attack the heart, and eventually the heart fails. So before the structural problem happened to the heart, the biochemical changes started happening. But one of the things that Eastern medicine promote is that before the biochemical changes happen in your body, energetic changes are happening in your body, which is not apparent to us. It does not provide symptoms. You may have ignored this as some days you feel fatigued and tired, you think you didn't sleep enough, you ate the wrong food, you had too much alcohol. You say, okay, I'm going to ignore that. And we give ourselves an explanation. We never stop to think that does that explanation really make sense? And then you feel fatigued and tired the next day and the next day, and then you get used to it all of a sudden. You learn how to balance that and accommodate and adapt to it. Little do we know, those energetic imbalances lead to biochemical imbalances in the body, which leads to structural imbalances, and then now we call it a disease. But how about if we can make a difference when the energetic imbalance happens? That's what the Eastern medicine is about. The acupuncture is about yin and yang. It's about balancing energy. Acupuncture never boasts, or should ever boast, about treating diseases. That is why if you looked at the WHO website, there are only about 23 diseases that WHO says that acupuncture treats. Because we are looking at it from a disease perspective. Acupuncture is nothing, it's not about treating diseases. Western medicine is. On the other hand, Eastern medicine is about energetic balance and empowering the individual to overcome the disease. So why not combine it? You can very easily combine the two, and that should be combined if for an individual to be successful. I have done it myself as a patient, and I am a physician, but I realized this when I became a patient myself. And it can be very easily combined, and it should be combined, and they complement each other.
Wow.
And may I add something? So why did I have open heart surgery from this guy? He said, because you're not happy, right?
Yes.
And my wife says, you're not happy. So I listened to this guy, he says, this is how you get happy. So I thank you, Dennis Prager. Because success won't make you happy.
Thank you, Dennis Prager.
You're welcome. Thank you for your gratitude. It's a statement about your character, about how open you are about gratitude, given a remarkable man that you are. So I'd like to offer another thought on success. It is important to be successful, but the first thing you have to do is define successful. What is successful? So the most common definition is making a good living. There's nothing wrong with making a good living, but I will give you an insight after decades of work on this subject. Money does not make you happy. Money makes the happy happier and the unhappy unhappier. The reason is this: if you're already happy, then money will just be another wonderful bonus in your life. It's better to have it than not to have it. It's not disputable. But if you're unhappy, the reason getting money will make you unhappier is that you thought money would make you happy, when the source of your unhappiness was not your lack of money. Your source of your unhappiness was whatever it is that gnaws at your soul, at your psyche, or what have you. So then I go back to my question: what is successful? So when I meet people whose children respect them, or even on occasion love them, and they have close friends and a community and a relatively good marriage, I have met the most successful human beings that I have ever met. That is success. And it is interesting to me, again, because of all of my time talking and writing about happiness and talking with people on the radio, I realize that if people actually just said, what will make me happy, they will be much happier. They don't. People ask, what do I want to do? They do not ask, what will make me happy? It's a remarkable thing. I mean, I am not thin, in case you didn't notice. But I am well aware of the fact that I can't eat whatever I want. If I ate what I want, I would not be happy. I would be miserable, in fact. Generally speaking, if you do what you want, you won't be happy. That's just the way it works in life. You have to know what is good for your happiness and for you, and then you can achieve it. Here's an example. So I wrote a column. 1,000 of my columns are on the internet. I commend them to your attention. I work very hard each week on the column. So I wrote one last year, exactly a year ago, next month. My younger son, I have 2 sons, my younger son got married, and as it happens, to add to the joy, he married at my older son's home in Florida. He lives in Pennsylvania. So it was a spectacularly happy time for me, especially since that son went through very difficult times. My late ex-wife and he adopted him at birth, not knowing that he was born to a meth addict, and that caused serious problems for a good part of his youth. He is now sober, married to a spectacular woman. He is happy. He is healthy. My cup runneth over. So it was a phenomenally happy day for me, and I wrote my column, and it was basically this: what do you think will make you happier? Your son's or daughter's wedding, or your son or daughter graduating Harvard? Every parent should ask themselves that question. And they act as if graduating Harvard, or for that matter, any college, will make them much happier than anything else. But if you pose this question to them, then they stop and think, gee, what would make me happier? My child's wedding or my child's graduation from a so-called prestigious college? Let me tell you that they're not comparable. If you're a normal human being, it is not comparable, the level of happiness you will achieve at your child's wedding compared to the damn graduation day, which, by the way, I didn't attend my own college. I was not at my graduation. I went to a movie that day. A Woody Allen movie opened that day, and I thought it was more important. Be that as it may, people don't ask what will make me happy. They ask, what does the herd expect from me? They want to be able to say, my daughter is at Dartmouth. That gives them great joy. What will give them great joy is, my daughter married a terrific guy. And they don't think that way, and nor do their children. I ask women that I meet anywhere, my waitress, a young woman next to me on an airplane, standing in line next to me at an airport, because I live in airports. I always use those as examples. And I love talking to strangers. It's one of my hobbies. So I will say, if we're talking for 2 minutes, say, mind if I ask you a question? Nobody ever said, yeah, I mind if you ask me a question. So it's just my way of saying, can I ask you a question? So I say, here is, if the woman is under 30, I don't ask it if they appear to me over 30. So, because I don't want to make them unhappy with the question. And I mean it, that's the reason, that is the reason. Anyway, so I will say, so I have a question. I'm offering you 2 guarantees. You can have either one. And not only that, even though the other isn't guaranteed, it doesn't mean you can't have it. It only means that one is guaranteed. So you could have a guaranteed great marriage, or a guaranteed great career, which would you choose? I have asked this to at least 100 women across the country. There is no predicting. I get tattooed women who say great marriage. I get straight-looking women in every possible way who say great career. I never can predict, never. And I'm batting 0 in predicting. And it's 50-50. It's just 50-50. And I really feel bad for the girl who said great career. You don't know what you're talking about. Between great marriage and great career, I published a column out of my 1,000 columns on the internet. It's the only column I ever published which I didn't write. I transcribed a 50-year-old woman who called my show. I have a male-female hour every week on Wednesdays. And she called me up, said, I want you to know, Dennis, I have 2 PhDs. I am the CEO of a major company. I'm doing very well. And I bought the idea that career will bring me more happiness than a husband and a family. I was wrong. I come home and it's very quiet. And I see my friends with kids and I think I made a really stupid decision. And the truth is, she made a stupid decision. A decision that is reinforced by those stupid institutions known as colleges. Because they tell girls all the time, career, 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 PhD, MA, career. A girl got up. If a girl gets up, I was on the Young Turks. I have a masochistic streak. So I was on the Young Turks, a radical left-wing show, and they couldn't believe, the woman who was interviewing me couldn't believe that I said this. If a girl gets up at a typical college when asked, so what do you want to do with your life? And she says, frankly, the most important thing in my life is finding a good man and making a family. She will not be as respected as the girl who says, I want to be a CEO or a physicist or what have you. And she said, oh, really? Where are the studies to show that? Which shows a first-class mind. She can't actually know what reality is without a study. But of course that's true. How many girls are going to get up in a class and say, frankly, the most important thing to me is to find a good man? After all, as they said when I was in college, the famous feminist line, a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle. Which is a very funny line, I admit it. And an extremely stupid line, which ruined 3 generations of happiness among young women who don't know that a good man is better than a good job.
Thank you, Dennis. We have just a couple minutes left, so before this curtain comes down, before we wave goodbye, we're going to open it up for any final quick closing comments, and then we'll be on our way. And so sad to see this program end because I didn't get to most of my notes, so there's so many more questions here. Whoever would like to go first with any closing comments, take it away.
Thank you, Anne. So with regard to health and medicine and disease, one of the only parting comments that I could have for any of you and anybody who's listening is that self-empowerment in health. If you have health, you can easily overcome disease. And then you might need medicine at some point in time. But even with that, if you have health, medicine needs health to be successful. We see this all the time. If a person does not have underlying health, medicine doesn't work. So the focus should be on health. And the only one thing in the human being that promotes and makes you successful in health is your own spirit. So figure out a way of connecting with the spirit and working and functioning from the spirit. I have seen patients whom I thought will not get out of the hospital after the surgery, walked out because they were in touch with their spirit. On the other hand, I've seen patients who I thought will walk out of the hospital easily, did not walk out because they were not in touch with the spirit. This is something you learn from the experience. Human spirit and your self-empowerment is the only way to health. Thank you.
My final word is that some of the happiest times of my life is when young people come up and say, your book changed my life. And there is no greater, and so I thank all the people that come up and said, my book changed my life. Because, again, every time I talk to a school teacher, I say, read this book here. Because it's a horrible book, but it's a great book. But it changed my life, and it gave my life meaning. You know, so I wrote this book here in response. It's called The Capitalist Manifesto. You notice it's a lot bigger, you know, because we're going communist, you guys. And I fought for our freedom. But I thank you. And then this book changed my life by Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller, one of the greatest geniuses of our times. He says our wealth is being stolen via our money, and that's why I say this is fake. Don't work for this stuff. But the final words, it's not a commercial message and all this, but if I had not done as Dennis says, pursued meaning in life, I would have hung out with Oprah and then this man here. So Donald Trump and I have written 2 books. I know people are going to start leaving right now. So Dennis, if I hadn't pursued meaning, this guy wouldn't have talked to me. You know, I'd be some little financial planner someplace. So anyway, it's about meaning, it's about speaking up and continually speak up, because what Marines and military fights for is our freedoms. Do not let our freedoms be stolen by our academics. Thank you very much.
So before Dennis closes us out, I just want to acknowledge that so many things were said tonight, so funny things, gosh. But our hope is that something stood out to you, right? That you can look at all of these different things that were shared, these different insights, these ways of thinking, and go home thinking differently about maybe one thing, or take a thought and share it with a friend. But this is a learning environment, and hopefully we have delivered to you on that. So with that comment, I thank you, and I'll turn it over to Dennis Prager to close us out.
So I have another one of my many hundreds of theories about life. Here's another one. I believe that you can divide humanity into 2 groups in hundreds of areas. So here's one of the areas. There are people who want to be stars, and there are people who want to be on an all-star team. My nature has always preferred to be on an all-star team than to be a star. And I feel that I've been on an all-star team tonight. This is my statement to the 3 of you. Thank you very much. It is my honor. God bless you all.